I think we can begin now. First, I'd like to welcome you to this virtual meeting of the Yorkshire Hills Neighborhood Watch Association. I thank you all for coming out, especially at such short notice. I know we are all very busy and it is extremely difficult at this time to take time away from our daily tasks for this meeting, especially in these difficult COVID-19 times. I'd like to take a moment to introduce to you our speakers for tonight. Firstly, my name is Ricardo Knight. I am the president of the Neighborhood Watch Association. Secondly, we have the Reverend Dr. Dwayne McFarlane, who is a resident here to give his account of an incident that took place in our community. Thirdly, Mr. Jadane Clark, who is also a resident here to share his ordeal. Additionally, we have SSP O'Shane Roberts, who is a lawman that is assigned to this association. And last but not least, we have Dr. Dane Lazarus, secretary of our association. As you can see here on the agenda, we will mainly be talking about the increase in crime in our community during the pandemic. First, we'll discuss open issues. After, we'll discuss new business. And finally, we'll move to adjourn this meeting. Remember, at the end of the day, the goal is simple: safety and security. I now welcome the Reverend Dr. McFarlane to give his opening remark.
Okay. Good evening, Mr. President. Good evening, SSP Roberts, and good evening to the fellow citizens of the Yorkshire community. Well, this is a brief recollection of the incident that had took place at my home on April 1st. When it all started, when I woke up at my usual time, which is about 5:30 in the morning. I was heading towards the kitchen to get a glass of water when I suddenly noticed that my couch has been moved and my kitchen stool has been knocked over. Puzzled, I turned on the light, and that's when it hit me that someone had broken into my house. My living room been ransacked. So I quickly rushed and searched for any valuables that was left idle in the living room. They were all gone. Valuables such as my phone, my laptop, cash, jewelry, they were all gone. I quickly alerted my neighbors and the police. And while investigating, we discovered that the perpetrators had gained entrance into my home through a back window. And also, we also found that they had left a crowbar behind, a crowbar that they had used to remove the burglar bar. I'm traumatized and a bit disheartened to know that such an incident could have happened in my community, in my home, while I was asleep. But with all is said and done, they have made off with most of my valuables. But the most valuable thing is that I still have life. Amen, someone?
Amen.
Amen. All right, thank you for that, Reverend. We now move over to Mr. Clark.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen.
Good
I
afternoon.
always hear about the crimes and violence, but when it happens to you, it really hit home. One Sunday evening on April 4th, I was washing my motor vehicle when suddenly I heard a sound. When I looked, it was a bike. I observed two persons on aboard the bike when who asked for direction of a house, which I said I did not know. They rode off into the opposite direction from which they came. Then I heard the bike again. I heard hand over the keys, turn around and said no. They slapped me with a gun and aimed it at my head. I then took the keys from my pocket and gave it to one of them. One of the person immediately pushed me aside and drove off in my car while the other rode off on the bike. An alarm was made and the police immediately gave search for the vehicle.
All right. Sound very traumatizing, Mr. Clark. I apologize for you going through something of that. I now invite SSP O'Shane Roberts to present.
Thank you, Mr. Knight. Good
Yeah.
day, team, and a good day to the residents of the Yorkshire Hilt community. My name is O'Shane Roberts, and I am a Senior Superintendent of Police assigned to the association, slated with the task of overseeing and updating the association board regarding the progress of ongoing cases. We are all aware that there is a pandemic at hand, and our Prime Minister is making a valiant effort in trying to get this infectious virus under control. However, despite all efforts, the marauding criminal underworld is seeking to undermine our security posture, especially in regards to the Disaster Risk Management Act, which governs our movement throughout this pandemic. In recent times, we have had an upsurge in the number of reported cases of burglary and robbery in the community, with the two most recent cases transpiring on Thursday, the 1st of April, 2021, at the residence of the Reverend Dr. Dwayne McFarlane, and Sunday, the 4th of April, 2021, at Mr. Clark's residence, respectively, just days apart. Subsequent to receiving the initial report from both residents, an investigative team comprising of detectives from the Central Intelligence Bureau as well as detectives from the Scenes of Crime Department were summoned. The victims were interviewed and the statements were recorded. The scene was thoroughly processed and evidence collected. However, at this time, no eyewitnesses have come forward. We have also ascertained a CCTV footage from Dr. McFarlane's neighbor with a timestamp matching the date and time of the incidents. The footage is currently at the Computer Forensic Laboratory for examination. It is disheartening that these perpetrators roam freely, wreaking havoc within the community. But be not dismayed, as we're approaching the situation heavy handedly. They will be given the full length of the law. However, I cannot emphasize enough the police alone cannot tackle this monster called crime. We as a people need to act in unison to safeguard ourselves and our community as best as possible by implementing preventative measures, such as one should be aware of their surrounding at all times. Leave nothing to chance. Always have your keys in hand for immediate use when entering your home or your motor vehicle. Retrofit entrances and exits of your dwelling with burglar bars. Installing cameras with night vision mode around your premises. Installing motion detection devices within your dwelling. And most importantly, be your neighbor's keeper. Thank you.
All right. Well said, SSP Roberts. Thank you for that. I now invite Dr. Dane Lazarus.
Yes, good evening. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for having
Evening.
me.
Evening,
Now,
sir.
we are all now we are all mindful of the current pandemic, which our Prime Minister is trying to get under control. However, the ravaging criminal elements, or in other words, the ravaging criminal underworld is looking to chip away at our stance as it relates to the risk management, which regulates movements during pandemic. Now, number of reports of larceny cases in our community have been has been ri- has been on the rise as of late since the criminal decided to carry out their acts during hours of 1 and 5 a.m. Two such cases recently with the Reverend Dr. McFarlane and our own resident, Mr. Clark. After receiving their reports, a group of investigators went to both the crime scene, collect evidence, and interviewed both victims. Up to this point, no eyewitness has come forward to make a report. However, CTV footage was obtained and is currently under investigation at the lab. Now, it is very distressing that person who commit this crime continues to remain free and cause chaos within our noble community. But do not lose hope, because, as Mr. McFarlane said, we have life. And the police has ensured us that they are treating this situation seriously. But nonetheless, be reminded that the police alone are unable to control crime. And we as a community need to work together to tackle this crime monster. As SSP Robert said, we need to install burglars bar at the exit and entrance at our home, along with night vision, cameras, and motion detectors devices around your premises. But most importantly, be your neighbor's keeper. Thank you.
All right, thank you for that, Dr. Lazarus. All right, so in closing, I'd like to remind you that you are your last line of defense in safety. It all boils down to you being your brother's keeper. All right, so at this moment, I call for adjournment. Anyone would like to second?
I second that notion.
All right, so thank you all for coming out tonight for this short, very short virtual meeting. I hope that all this that we have discussed will get resolved. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me, sir.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you for having
Thank you for having me, sir.
Thank you for having me.